Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining me as always. As you can see, I'm in a woodland. It's quite early in the morning, it's not too long after sunrise, and regarding the time of year, it is spring. So my hope for today is to explore this woodland and maybe be able to capture a few photographs which have got a little bit of spring in them. But I don't think it's going to be an easy task. As is often the case with woodland and landscape photography, it's not always easy. And I say that because, as you can probably see all around me, the vast majority of the trees in this woodland won't really be flourishing with spring colours. So I need to have a good look around, explore, and hopefully find a few nice potential subjects to photograph. Regarding the weather, I'm hoping the light will be suitable. That's another thing that could make it tricky today. At the moment, it's quite nice, it's looking promising, but the sun's not too high in the sky yet, so I don't really know what's going to happen. There is some cloud cover, and there's actually been a little bit of rain. In fact, it's just started to come on at the moment again. But anyway, I'm off to explore and hopefully find some spring colour. So I've been walking through this woodland for quite some time now, looking for any trees which caught my eye, showing some nice spring colour. And as I spoke about earlier in the video, the words that I spoke then have rung true. There isn't an abundance of spring colour in this woodland, but there's definitely signs of spring. There's some trees here and there, and there's also some smaller details such as flowers on the forest floor. So there's plenty to photograph if you look around, but of course finding a nice composition is not always easy. So the few trees that caught my eye, I had a look at them, and they didn't work for two reasons. The main reason being that where I saw a composition in a tree that I liked the look of, I liked its character, I was forced to include the sky, too much sky, and it was obviously a distraction. It would pull your eye in the photograph. The other reason some didn't work is that just when I looked at the tree or a couple of trees that I saw in a potential composition, they weren't strong enough characters, in my opinion, to make a nice photograph. So it wasn't worth getting the camera out. But way off in the distance, I spotted something, and it's this scene behind me here. And it's quite an important thing to highlight, or a tip to give you in this video, is that if you see something when you're out in the woodland or out doing landscape photography in general, and it catches your eye, always investigate. Trust your instincts, because there is quite possibly a nice photograph there. So always trust your instincts and investigate if something catches your eye. But anyway, for me, it was this scene behind me here, and all I could see in the distance was bits of the vibrant spring colours on this bank at the other side of this little valley, the bright dead tree, and that lovely canopy of spring green on the tree just to its left. So it really caught my eye, and I think there's two potential compositions here. So I've got my camera set up here. I've got the telephoto lens on at about 90mm. It's starting to rain now. It's been on and off for little spells, but the light's been quite nice. So I'm at roughly 90mm depending on the composition. I'm taking in a wider shot, which has got the skeletal dead tree at the right, which leans diagonally to the right, that nice canopy in the middle, and then there's another diagonal tree. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it, but it leans to the left. So those opposite diagonals are nice framing at the right and left of the image. I quite like that. And we've got all the lovely colours at the base as well on the slope there. And the other composition that I've been working on is just taking in the canopy, a sort of 1:1, a square aspect ratio, just focusing on that area without including the dead tree to the right. So I think Both compositions work very well. I'm not sure which one will be my favourite, but I think they were both definitely worth capturing. It's a nice start to the day. And the light is quite nice at the moment. As I say, there's some light rain on, but the light is really nice looking in this direction behind the camera, but there's no compositions there. But definitely time to go off and investigate and see if I can find anything else worth photographing. Up until this point, it had been incredibly hard to find any worthwhile compositions that would show spring growth, and that was a theme that would continue with me throughout the day, so I felt quite pleased that I had created this photograph. As you will see, the background of this scene is very dense, as is often the case in woodland photography. However, I was fortunate to get some soft light on the front of my scene which separated it nicely from the dark complex woodland beyond. I like the composition, and I feel that it has a number of strong lines and shapes. As I mentioned while on location, there are the opposing framing diagonal lines to the left and right, with some strong verticals between them, and also some supporting verticals. The curved canopy of green is supported by a number of surrounding triangles, which is something that I really like. Overall, I think this is quite an effective woodland composition with pleasing light, and as you'll hear me discuss more throughout this video, it felt rewarding on this day to find something that I was actually keen to photograph. So I spent the last 30 to 40 minutes sheltering. There's been some heavy rain, and I've been taking shelter underneath this tree here. I believe it's a beech tree, and I think there's some potential here. You can see some signs of spring growth, more so on this particular branch to my left, and off to my right the leaves are just barely starting to grow, but here there's a bit more growth on them. But I think I need to return in a couple of weeks' time, and there may be a nice composition here. At the moment I think it would just be trying to force a photograph which wouldn't really work, so I'm going to log this one in the memory banks and head on and see if I can find anything else. So I have to say I've really been struggling, not struggling as a photographer as such, but rather struggling with this location. For the last 2.5 to 3 weeks as I've been driving around in my car, there's been lots of lovely spring colour everywhere. And today, as I mentioned earlier, that was my goal. I wanted to capture some of that in my photographs. So I decided to come somewhere new, and I didn't think there would be spring colour everywhere, but I thought if I walked around, spent quite a lot of time exploring, I would find quite a few examples of spring colour and hopefully a few nice photographs, but that just hasn't been the case. There's not been a lot of spring colour, and definitely not many things I thought would make a nice photograph. So I like to prioritise my photography. I don't like to just take photographs. I really want to take photographs because I want to take them rather than just include them in a video. So it's been very challenging finding things that I like. But I have found something, and it wanted me, as soon as I saw it, I wanted to get the camera out and photograph it. So it's just behind me here, and I'll let you see if you know what it is or if you can identify what it is. It might be difficult on the video camera, it's very small, but what I saw is these beautiful little white flowers growing out of the, I guess it's the moss on this tree branch behind me here. And there was some lovely soft light in them a little while ago, and I just thought there had to be a photograph there. And I think this is quite a good tip, quite a good lesson. And even though I think most of us prefer the big vistas or slightly bigger shots, it's always important to pay attention to the smaller details. especially in a time such as this, it's spring, because you can really get some nice photographs. It's good for your creative mind. You still have to apply the same skills, and composition is very important as well, even if you're just photographing a small area. So really look out for those small details that can pay off, and it can be quite a fun and rewarding type of photography as well. So for this shot, I'm taking it handheld because there's no way I can get a tripod into the area that I need to be on. I've been using my telephoto lens, fully zoomed in at 140 millimeters, and I've got into a position where there's, I think, there's about 2 or 3 of these little white flowers that I'm primarily concerned with. There's another one off to the left which I can't do much about in terms of getting it to be shown completely in my shot, but the main ones that I'm focusing on, I've really got into a nice position so there's some separation between them. And there's one key flower at the top right which is largest as well, and that's the one that I've been focusing on. And I've obviously going to have a very shallow depth of field with this shot, which is going to be quite effective. So it's been critical that I got my focus absolutely spot on that flower that I spoke about. So I think it's quite a nice shot. I'm quite pleased that I've found it, because it's a very, very small detail that would have been extremely easy to miss, and if I'd missed it, this photograph would never exist.
This year, across the areas that I travel, the temperature has been unusually low for spring, and there has been a winter-like feel throughout many of the days. I'm still seeing quite a lot of snow in places in May. I believe this has slowed the spring growth in some areas, and this is why I saw so little of it on this day. It proved really difficult to find scenes showing spring growth that I wanted to photograph. However, what I am about to say at the end of this video while on location has definitely rung true.
So that's going to be it from me from this woodland for today. It's certainly been a challenge, and now the light is getting quite harsh, which only adds to that challenge in the woodland. But I think I've actually captured a very small number of images which I'm going to be quite happy with. It's been very difficult, as I've covered in this video, and I think when you face some challenges in life, or indeed your photography, and you overcome them, you end up feeling very satisfied and you've got a feeling of accomplishment. And I definitely think I'll have that from today once I get the images edited and look at the final result. So I think I'll have a few images that I'll be quite satisfied with and fairly proud of, considering the struggle I've had today. But as always, I really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video.